everybody. I'd like to thank the grace of heaven, the virtues of the masters, and the compassion and mercy of the grand predecessors, predecessors, senior transmitters, lecturers, temple masters, everyone for giving me this opportunity to talk about today's class, which is part 2 of chapter 61, which hopefully, as you guys know, let me go here. It's called to be low or lower, a lower position or dwell below. Okay, it's basically about humility. Okay, moderation, humility. Okay, all right. Okay, so we left off on section 2. Okay, we left off on section 2 about the large kingdom is lower than the small kingdom. Then it can take, which means earn admiration or respect. Okay, that's what it means by take. Okay, this means take of the small kingdoms or the small country. Now, this applies not just for kingdoms, but also, or countries, but also for individuals. Okay, so that's what we left off. I think we left off here, right? So the great person, that's the large country, large kingdom is humble, not arrogant, not domineering to others. Okay, that's the leadership trait of a great person. Okay, so now on a deeper understanding is this, that by treating small countries, which means ordinary people, that's what it means. Okay, not a great person, but ordinary people, as equals, the large country, that means the great person, okay, does not lose its status of greatness. Okay, the way to attain harmony in human interactions is always the humble approach. That is the lower position. Okay, all right. Now, quite to the contrary, okay, this is how a large country or a great person wins admiration and respect. The humble approach will be reciprocated over time by all sides. All right. Okay. So the implication is, although the large country may be more powerful militarily or economically, it should treat the small country as an equal. So the large country initiates the exchange because it sets the tone, the interaction. By doing so, it still does not diminish the status of a large country. So you can substitute large country for a great person or bigger person, and a small country for the ordinary person. Okay, so works at those levels. All right. So even though there are objective differences between a large and small country, right? Objective, size, economy, population, geography, et cetera, right? Okay. So the large country should not dominate, intimidate, or be aggressive towards the small country. It should treat the small countries with courtesy and as equals. So that's on the country scope level. On the personal level, the great person is humble, calm, open, and receptive, and always treats others with courtesy and as equals. Others meaning the ordinary people, ordinary person. Okay, so this is how the great person earns the admiration and respect of others. Being humble and receptive also do not diminish the status of a great person. All right. Okay, so then the next this is line 8 and 9, or phrases 8 and 9. Okay. Let's see, do we have this? Yeah. Oops. Okay. Shoot. Wrong. What the hell? Okay. All right, here. Sorry. All right. Okay. So if the small kingdom, this place right here, is lower than the large kingdom, then it can be taken. Meaning, this case, it's not. It does not mean earn admiration or respect. It means be included by the large kingdom. Okay, so all right, so okay, this lower. Okay, I mean, it literally means low, below, low, under. Okay, it means humility. Okay, it means being humble. Okay. So now, previous phrase, we talk about large country or large kingdom has to be lower than the small kingdom, meaning has to be humble. But the small country similarly, likewise. Okay, so humility is for both large and small countries. Now, Why? Because the small country is respectful in dealing with and approaching the large country. Okay. So why is that so then? Okay. The reality is that the large country or the kingdom already has many ties with many small countries, right? So the small country needs the large country more than the large country needs the small country. Thus, it is in the best interest of the small country to represent itself in the best possible light. So it too has to be humble. All right. So, okay. All right. Now, this is because the power dynamic is not equal on both sides, right? In terms of, the objective differences, in terms of geography, population, resources, economy, military power, etc. Right? The large country tends to have more of these, right? Whereas the small country has less, right? So therefore, the humble approach for the small country also provides the best chance of acceptance. All right. Now, on a personal level, okay, as someone who's not a great person, let's just say ordinary person, right? By being humble and respectful towards others, they can become a great person also. All right. That's how it should be. How that's the path, okay, to become a great person. Now, to be taken, right? That's what this means. This term, to be taken, okay, that's what literally it means. All right. Okay. So to be taken, though, the small country, right? So the small country can be taken by the large country, by a large kingdom. To be taken does not mean to be absorbed, conquered, or dominated. It just means to be included, to become a trusted ally of the large country, to join the large country sphere of influence or circle of allies, friends, etc., right? Okay, so another meaning is to be included also means to win recognition from the large country, which can lead to many benefits for the small country, such as alliances, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, defense treaties, etc., right? Okay, so these are the country level. Now, the personal level, okay, so the microcosm, the miniature world, right, the mini world of the individual reflects the macrocosm, the greater world, okay, or the large world of the national. That's, of the national level, meaning the states, countries, etc. So what is true for the large and small countries is also true for people, all right? So for some examples of how this applies to life, let's look at Appendix D, okay? So let's talk about service, because in today's economy world, service is a big part, right, of our you can say of of people's livelihoods, right, or of the economy, and etc. Okay. All right. So in today's world, okay, especially in today's, an example of a small country is the service provider. That ordinary people doing work, right? Doing service, providing service to each other. Okay. All right. So the wise professional understands the Tao intuitively. They understand the importance of providing excellent service to customers, right? If you are, professional, right? Be it self-employed or even working for, in a large company, whatever, small, large, medium company, doesn't matter. Okay. You have to do a good job in whatever role you have, right? That is to provide service, right, to customers. Okay, so you also have to be humble, okay, because it means providing great service with the right attitude, right? You don't, if you're arrogant, a lot of people wouldn't come to you for help, even if they needed help, right? Right? So whereas if you're humble, everybody will ask for your help, right? Okay. But you don't dominate. You don't, you're not showing off, right? You're not flaunting, right? Okay. Now, also you have to be receptive. It's a two-way street, right? Meaning that you listen to the customer or client, right? You have to listen. You have to understand what they're looking for, what their needs are, et cetera, right? Okay. So you have to be receptive, all right? So being humble and receptive on the part of the service provider does not diminish the professional status in any way. It doesn't matter, right? If you're an expert in something, right, or if you're very skilled in something, right, being humble and receptive doesn't take away the fact that you're still skilled, or in something, right, in certain thing, right, or right, it doesn't take that away, right? Okay, so indeed, being humble and receptive, it enhances, by being humble and receptive, it enhances the service provider's reputation and inspires loyalty. All right. Okay. So the reputation in the form of high regard and loyalty, and that comes about through the reputation of the form, in the form of high regard and loyalty, from kind of, word of mouth. Word of mouth. Or today, you could go onto internet and see the ratings, right? Ratings given, right, by customers, right? Stuff like that. Okay. Stuff, anything. Okay. So now this applies not just, okay, it could also apply to managers too. Okay. Managers. I think we talked about that earlier in leadership, right? Same thing, right? We talked about that. Okay. So it's the same thing. All right. Okay. So let's go back to Appendix D. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's what. Okay. However, now the implication is this: is that the principles that work for kingdoms, ancient kingdoms, also work equally well for us on the individual level or personal level, right? So for the kingdom, the small country also must, at the kingdom level, the small country must also be humble in order to be included or to be recognized, right, with the large country, right? A large country, right? Okay, they can gain recognition, and also they can be included with the large country, sphere or circle, right? Okay. At the personal level, as a service providers, that's the ordinary people, the small country, we also need to be humble and receptive in order to have a mutually beneficial relationship with others, right? Okay. All right. So let's go to the last, let's see, what is that? The last section, last two phrases of section 2. Okay. So therefore, or thus, one uses the lower position to take, or which is to earn admiration and respect. The other, okay, so thus one, the first, okay, well, let me explain. Okay, but I'm just doing the translation, the literal translation. Okay, thus one uses the lower position to take or earn admiration and respect. The other uses the lower position in order to be taken or to be included. Okay, so where's my mouse? Okay, here. Okay, so what this term 或, it means, in this case, it means someone, okay, something, okay, all right, okay. But this first one versus the second one, okay. So the first one means the large country. All right, so it uses the humble, receptive, and soft approach. That's the lower position in order to earn admiration and respect of, or to win over the small country. That's what it means to take. Okay, all right. So this represents a large country, and this represents the small country or small kingdom. All right, or the big person and the regular person. Okay, all right. So another meaning is that the large country uses the humble approach to win the hearts and minds of the small country. All right. Now, at a personal level, in modern life, the large country is the person with the advantage, in a position, either status, wealth, power, that has the edge or the power, person of wealth, status, and power. Okay, so that's what a large country will represent on a personal level. We say a big person or a great person. Okay. The understanding is that using the great person or the big person, using the humble approach, such a person with power can win people over, not just in direct contact, but also indirectly through reputation, word of mouth, etc. That's how a large person, okay? Now, the second phrase is that the other, remember we say the other, right? This is the second phrase, right? The second phrase here, right? Which is the other, right? The other, okay? The other In this case, it's a small country that also uses the humble approach for a different reason and outcome, right? The big country uses the humble approach in order to earn, respect, admiration, to win over the other people or the smaller countries, right? Now, the small country also uses the humble approach, but for a different reason and outcome, all right? Okay, so the objective of the small country is to win acceptance, to be included, and recognition, and tap into the large country's resources and influence, to benefit from the large country's resources and influence, markets, whatever, okay, alliances, economic, power, et cetera, right? Okay, so on a personal level, in modern life, the small country can be the person providing the service, the ordinary person, the ordinary person with little wealth, status, or power, ordinary Joe, okay, ordinary person, right? Okay, all right. So using the humble approach, the ordinary person can win customers over, or the service providers, not just in direct contact, but also indirectly through what? Reputation, word of mouth, same thing, just like the large country or the big person, all right? Okay, so the implication is that the Tao of humility is used in both cases. It has to be, it's consistent. So people say, oh, just because, if you're high and mighty, you'll have to be humble. Yes, that's definitely true, because in order to become high and mighty, you have to be humble. But lower level people or ordinary people also has to be humble, okay? Because that's the only way to become high and mighty. It's kind of like a circular thing, okay? Okay, but in different cases, in different reasons, different ways, okay? So it's used in both cases, but in different ways. One, the big person, the large country, uses it to earn admiration and respect, right? That's for the large country or big person to do. While the other, the ordinary person, the small country, uses it to win acceptance and recognition, all right? So, they both use humility, the humble approach, but for different reasons and different outcomes, okay? All right, so a person of advantage or power can earn the admiration and respect of others by using the humble, receptive, and soft approach, okay? All right, that's the large country. Being gracious is demonstrating generosity, while the person of power, being gracious, is showing class. The small country, being humble, is gaining acceptance, while the person providing service, is gaining recognition. All right? Okay, so that's what this point. Okay, so now let's go to section 3. Okay, we're on the conclusion. We got, let's see, I have about 30 minutes. Okay, yeah, that should do it. Okay, all right. So first sentence of the last section is, the large kingdom only wishes to gather and protect people. The small kingdom only wishes to join and serve people. All right. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So, okay. Jian, that's this term. Jian. Okay. Jian means, to collect. You can say to collect. Let's say Jian means to combine or to connect. Okay. To unite. Okay. To combine, connect, unite. Xu. Okay, this. Okay, now it literally generally means to raise, to grow, to hoard. Okay, literally means that. Okay, to nurture. You can say partly to nurture too. Okay, so that's the adjacent meaning. Okay, all right. So the basic meaning of the first phrase, which is the large kingdom, dealing with the large kingdom. Okay. Okay, it's this. Is the large country becomes even more powerful by having more small countries as allies. So having more small countries in its sphere of influence, right? That's how it gets more influence, more power, etc. Okay. So when the large country is gracious, right, it demonstrates generosity, magnanimity, etc. The small countries do their share to contribute to the greatness of the large country. Thus, the large country becomes more powerful. Okay, so this is at the country, kingdom level, but it also applies in the personal level, okay, an individual. So in real life, when the boss, the boss being the large country, the person of advantage, right, of power or status, is gracious and humble, the boss is demonstrating generosity and class, right? When the boss, right, is gracious and humble, the boss is demonstrating generosity. Okay, so this result, what's the result of that? That means the workers, like the small countries, are productive and happy, right? They're willing to what? Work with the boss or work for the boss, right? Okay, etc. All right, okay. So that's the first phrase. So it applies, okay? So the large country, all right? Now the small country, now we have the second phrase, okay? The small country protects itself by being accepted into the trusted circle of the large country. So for the small country to use the humble approach may be a matter of survival, right? Because, because small country could be weaker, right? They lack resources, or, the economy is not as big, or, et cetera, right? So it could be a matter of survival for the small country to want to join, right? To be included as part of the large country circle, right? Okay. So another is that acceptance, is the starting point of beneficial relations, right? They have to be accepted, right? Okay. So now that's at the country level. At the individual level or personal level, in real life, this is like the service provider, the ordinary person, demonstrating what? They're appreciative of all the business, for the business and the work, right? So that's the humble approach. You're not arrogant. They demonstrate to their customers they appreciate their business. They would like to continue the business, in the future, et cetera, right? Okay, so that's how it works, right? In the real world, right? On the individual level, the customer. How does the service provider benefit the ordinary person? Well, the customers reciprocates with repeat business and referrals. Now, the customer in this case would be the big country now, because they're the ones who who have the edge, right? It's not the the customer doesn't have to use this particular service provider. They have many choices, many options. So that's why the customer holds the power, right? In this relationship, right? In this relationship between the customer and the transaction, right? Today's world, we say customer is king, right? Stuff like that, right? So that's why service is very important, right? Okay. So the customer reciprocates with repeat business and referrals, right? So that's how the service provider can benefit, right? Okay. By being what? By demonstrating appreciation, by being appreciative, right, of the business. Okay. So the deeper understanding now on an internal level is this: in the role of a great person, that's the big person or great person, that's the great country. Your thoughts, that's the people, are combined with jian and established or grounded in humility. Okay. So that's on the internal side. Okay. That's what this phrase means. Okay. That, when you are in the role of a great person, it could be a manager, person of some kind of advantage or some status, some power, etc. Or okay, that has something, something that's not ordinary people would have. Okay, then your thoughts internally, okay, have to be combined with and established in humility. So that means all your thoughts, you can't be arrogant. Okay, all right, okay. Now another understanding is now deal with the ordinary person internally. Okay, internally in the role of a person of service, ordinary person. Okay, that's all. Your thoughts are aligned and in accordance with humility. So it works both ways. So now, what I'm saying is, you may be a great person in one particular situation, right? Like in your family, you're the head of the household, or at work, you're the manager, the boss, or whatever. But that's only one part of your life, right? On other parts, even if you're a boss of your company, you have your boss, right? You have to answer to your boss. So in that case, you are an ordinary person or the small person. Okay, ordinary person. Okay, all right. So, or in a community, or in society in general, okay, even though you may have some, status, wealth or power, all right, but in the greater community society, you still have to what? Follow the laws of the land, et cetera, right? So you, in that case, you're the ordinary person too, right? So what I'm saying is these roles can be simultaneous, right? So everybody, it's not fixed, just saying, oh, you are always a great person or big person, or person of, et cetera, okay, or that you're always a ordinary person. No, it doesn't mean that, okay? All right, just wanted you to understand that, all right? It's be simultaneous and also applies in different situations, all right? Okay, so when everyone, that is the great and the ordinary person, is in accordance with or congruent to the Tao, it will result in excellence, happiness, and prosperity. Thus, when the Tao is present, peace and prosperity prevail for all, or is calmness everywhere. To see how the interaction between large and small countries apply to Tao cultivation, let's look at Appendix E. Okay? Oops. Oh, how come it's not working? Okay, there it is. Okay, for Tao cultivation, all right? Okay, so let's look at large and small countries, all right? Well, what's the dynamic, right? The interaction. So what are the large countries? They, in Tao cultivation now, we're talking about Tao cultivation, okay? Large countries would be those experienced cultivators. That's in terms of, accumulated wisdom, et cetera, okay? Knowledge, okay? The smaller countries represent beginners, just initial, people who just entered the Tao, beginning their Tao cultivation, their path of cultivation. They wish to learn from the large country, that is from the experienced, cultivators. Okay, so being humble means not to assume an attitude of superiority, arrogance, superiority, right? And being receptive means to observe and learn from all sources. So even the experienced cultivators have to be receptive, all right? Okay, they have to observe and learn, okay, from all, okay? Because how did they get there? How did they got to where they are? They also have to learn and observe, right? So the good person, the great person, that's the great country, it becomes the teacher. It's the teacher, right? Yeah, all right? The experience, wise cultivators, right? Whereas the bad, now we say the bad, because I have to use, the opposite, all right? Good, bad, okay? I mean, bad, not, okay? Doesn't mean necessarily bad mean in the moral sense, okay? It just means that it's petty, a small person, okay? Petty, okay? Such a small country, all right? Becomes the resource, all right? It's the resource, okay? So remember chapter 27, okay? Right? We said, therefore, the good person is the teacher of the bad person. The bad person is the resource of the good person, okay? That's what I mean. Now, in this case, the bad person, it just means that one who has not, who's, let's say, new to the Tao, because we're talking about Tao cultivation, okay? That's what it means. It just means that one who hasn't really, who just started out, the right, the initiate, okay, the tenderfoot, the person who just started out. Okay, it doesn't mean that they're bad, morally or whatever. Okay, it doesn't mean that. All right, it just means, okay. So recall chapter 27. All right, okay. So the wise cultivators always assume the lowest position. They must assume. They have to be humble. Okay, that's. And this is a quote from a line from the Platform Sutra. All right. Okay, it's chapter 1. It's about midway. About midway. Because chapter 1 is it's a fairly long chapter, but it talks about his autobiography. But anyway, so the quote is, if you wish to learn the ultimate Bodhi, that's the wisdom, you must not regard beginners lightly. Yeah, beginners lightly. So that would be we say the bad person, okay? The beginners, okay? The small person. Okay? So the lowest students, or the bad person, or the small person, small students may have the highest wisdom. Yeah, the highest students may be without wisdom. So to regard others lightly is to have unlimited fault. Okay, so that's what the sixth patriarch said. Oh, back then he wasn't sixth patriarch. Well, when he said this, he wasn't sixth patriarch yet. Okay, so that's in his biography. All right, okay, chapter 1. All right. He also said, all the wonders, wisdom of the Buddha are not dependent on words. They are transmitted apart from words. They are to be understood and grasped in the heart, in the spirit, in the soul, no matter what the words you use or don't use. Okay? So this is the wisdom that makes being the lowest river the most meaningful. Okay? So that's what the first line or first phrase, right, of this chapter is, right? Ruling a great kingdom is like being or dwelling at the lowest river or the lowest reaches of a river. Okay, that's just the first line or phrase, just sets the theme for this chapter, which is, that's the wisdom part. Okay, that you have to be humble, even though you may know a lot. Yes, even though you're the most experienced, most skilled, most knowledgeable, whatever, or most powerful, or most famous, most wealthy, etc., etc. All right. Okay. So that's what that means. All right. Okay. So let's go to back. Okay. All right. Okay. So the key point is the generosity of the large country allows it to become more powerful. That's on the kingdom level. On a personal level, the humble approach gives the service provider, that is the small country, the opportunity for prosperity and recognition for its excellent service, while the customer, which is the large country, gains excellent results. All right. So, okay. So on the internal level, okay, whether in the role of a great person, or the large country, or as an ordinary person, a small country, when your thoughts, that's the people, are grounded and aligned with humility, it is being in the lower position, like the lowest river, which is the Tao. Okay, which is like, now let's go to summary part 2. Okay, so the small kingdom, for the small kingdom is you still have to use the humble approach. Okay, you use courtesy and genuine respect when you come into contact with others, right? Okay, all right. So that's now. This applies to both. Well, I say small kingdom, but that's how. Also big kingdom too. All right. Okay. So now, good when people. When you're a service provider, small country, you have to win people over. You have to gain recognition, right, or acceptance. And that good service is hard to find. So this principle easily elevates you above the country, right? So by being appreciative, right, okay, right, that's how you can win your customers, okay, win people, all right, okay. So thirdly is effortless excellence. Okay, so with this key to success, the small country eventually the big country naturally. Okay, so this is about the small country taking humble approach and gaining recognition, winning people over, and it becomes almost like effortless path. Okay, to eventually becoming recognized. Your reputation will spread right through word of mouth, etc., etc. And that's also how you become a big country or a big person or a person of advantage. All right. Okay, let's see, where am I? Let's see, summary. Okay, all right. Okay, so now we are, let's see, I still have 20 minutes. Okay, so now we are at the last 2 phrases, I think. Yeah, last 2 phrases. Okay. Okay, the conclusion. So that both sides each obtain what they wish. Okay, both sides, the meaning, big country, small country, big person, small person, or person of advantage and the ordinary person. Okay, both sides. They both get what they got, what they want, what they wished. Okay, so the larger one is fitting or should be, is fitting to be low or should be in the lower position. The larger one. That's interesting. Okay, so So what does that mean? Okay, so basic meaning is that of the first phrase, both sides each obtain what they wish. Okay, so what this means is that it's interesting. It's a win-win. Okay, so that means both sides, large and small country, benefit from the interaction, from their interaction with each other. Now, this is concurrent to Tao because the Tao is always win-win, not a zero-sum game. Not one side gains at the expense of the other. That's not the Tao. See, that's the important difference. Okay, about Tao. It's not a zero-sum game. Like in most we say in most game theory analysis, or relationships. We can talk about this as relationship in relationships. Only one side gain at the expense of the other. One side gets the bigger stick, the other one gets the short end of the stick. Stuff like that. That's not the Tao. See, so whenever we have these zero-sum games, that's not how the Tao is. Okay, that's not reflection. That's not a reflection of the way of the Tao or the nature of the Tao. The Tao is equal to all. Now, in the next, let's say, chapter 62, I believe. Chapter 62. Yeah, chapter 62. We'll talk a little bit about that too, okay, about the wondrous Tao. It's kind of like a change of pace, okay? It's going to talk about the nature of the Tao, okay? So we'll talk a little bit about that, okay? That, the Tao is not, it's equal to all. It's equal. It's equal. It's fair to all. An example. Let's look at nature, right? Nature is a reflection of the Tao, right? Okay. The sun shines when the sun is shining, right? On the half of the earth, right? That's facing the sun. The sun shines on everybody, either the good person, the bad person, doesn't matter. The just person, the unjust person, it doesn't matter. The sun still shines on everybody, right? Same idea. So when it rains on everybody. It just doesn't rain only on the bad or only on the good, deserving people, and not on the undeserving people, right? The Tao provides for all, right? Whether you're good or bad, whether you deserve it or don't deserve it, right? It doesn't matter, right? Okay, so now there is karma that comes into play, but karma is not because the Tao says, the Tao, the karma is based on individuals' actions, causality, right? Okay, but the Tao does just what it does regardless of the causality. Yeah, okay, it's just natural. It's just the way it is, all right? So that's very important, all right? So both small and large countries can benefit from each other by taking the humble approach. That is to be with the Tao, okay? So another key, so that's why both sides win, okay? Just win-win, all right? Okay, so this means on the kingdom level that both the large and small countries have favorable trade and commerce. Example, the country would be one side gain. Favorable trade and commerce, cultural exchanges, etc., mutual, benefit, right? Both sides, it's a win-win, right? Both sides. Okay. Last time, part one, when I mentioned, that there's an economic theory behind, the relationship, or we say commercial or trade relationship between large and small countries. It does not be large and small, but just different countries. It's called Ricardo's law of comparative advantage. All right, I don't want to get into too much economic theory, but that's the idea behind that. No one country is 100% self-sufficient in everything. Okay, so because different countries, large or small, have different advantages, comparative advantage. That's what it means. Okay, so therefore, it makes sense for them to promote trade. Okay, because both sides will benefit. All right, so that's the economic theory. That's called the Ricardo law of comparative advantage. Anyway, okay, all right. So that's why that theory also does not promote the notion of tariffs. Okay, so hey, so that's why you have the free market economists, saying that, anyway, tariffs are bad because what happens with tariffs is that both sides lose. Okay, so one side will lose, the ability to sell. They would have reduced volume. The other side would find with higher prices. Okay, so stuff like that, right? So that's called the Ricardo law of comparative advantage. But anyway, so that's not really in accordance to the Tao. Okay, so anyway, all right. So the contrary. Now, what's the opposite of that? The contrary would be that one side gains at the expense of the other. Yeah. Okay. So that would be that would be a negative relationship. Okay. Now, this we say between countries also applies to people, right? Between relationship, right? Let's say one spouse or whatever, or between friends, it doesn't matter, or neighbors or whoever, it doesn't matter. One side, dominates the other, or gains, whatever, gets all the I don't know, benefit or whatever, out of a relationship, and the other side gets nothing, okay, in return. So that would be bad, right? Or both sides, in this case, let's say both countries, large or small, whatever, can lose in a negative exchange, such as sanctions, trade wars, or political military conflicts, etc., etc., right? Or on the personal level, right? Both sides can lose in a negative, such as, you want to you spite each other, so you backstab each other, etc., right? So that's okay. So negative. Okay, so at a personal level, okay, both the person of power and the service provider have a mutually beneficial relationship. That's a win-win situation for everyone, all due to the humble approach, which is congruent to the Tao, right? Okay, so that's how you get a win-win situation. Is the key is you have to be humble, or take the humble approach, to being in the lower position. All right, both sides, okay, both the bigger person or the person of advantage, and the ordinary person, the person of little or no advantage. All right, okay, the service provider, right? Example. That's why monopolies are bad too, all right, in economic theory. Okay, so same idea. Okay, all right, okay. So the contrary is when the relationship is one-sided, or both sides become involved in arguments, contentions, debates, ill will, distrust, resentment, etc., right? So that's on a individual level or personal level, interaction level, right? So that's not the Tao, right? So that's why harmony is so important. That's like the core, one of the core essential points of the Tao Te Ching. The whole Tao Te Ching is, okay, besides Wu Wei, right? There's Wu Wei. That's detached action. It's really non-conditioned or non-subjective, okay? Non-ego or egoless actions or thoughts, etc., right? But then there's also humility, and harmony. So those are the big three, okay? The big three, you can say the big three themes, pillars of the Tao Te Ching, okay? All right, because these are all the reflection of the Tao, right? The Tao is egoless, right? The Tao doesn't flaunt, it doesn't dominate, it creates everything, but it doesn't say, hey, you have to follow me because I'm your creator, etc., right? And the Tao is like water, right? It's like water. It flows to the bottom. It's at the lowest position, like the river, right? Like this first phrase. Okay, so those are the three, you can say, key main pillars, the essential, the core elements of the Tao Te Ching. Okay, all right, okay. Now let's look at the second phrase, which is, or the last phrase. Okay, the larger one is fitting to be low, or should be in the lower position. Okay. How much time do I have? 10 minutes. Okay. All right. So the basic meaning is now, in terms of at the kingdom level, the larger country should take the initiative on the humble approach. Why? Because they have all the advantage. They set the tone. They set the agenda, right? They have all the advantage, right? In terms of, population, let's say geography, whatever, economic power, military power, political power, whatever. Okay, so that's why the large country, you're the leader, right? You're supposed to be in a leadership position. You have to show generosity, right? Okay, so you should take the initiative. The big country, okay, should take the initiative on being humble, taking the humble approach. Okay, so this alludes to the guest host dynamic, okay, in Eastern thought, in particularly in Chinese thought, right, or philosophy, okay. It's called the guest host, okay. 客主, right, 客人主人, okay, 客人主人, that's what it means, okay. Maybe I should put it in Chinese, but doesn't matter, okay. So the guest, the 客人, plays the passive role, yeah, very interesting, while the host, the 主人, plays the active role. Now, in Western thought, sometimes it's reversed. Okay, they say the guest is the active, where the host plays the passive. Okay, so anyway, all right. So now for large countries, they have to be the host. They have to be the host in taking the initiative on the humble approach. Yeah. Okay. So the large country is the host. Okay. All right. Because they're being receptive to the small country, right? To the small country, okay? So they have to show generosity, right? Okay, take the initiative, showing generosity. All right. So, while the small countries are the guests in accepting the large country's initiative, right? Okay, so it's a two-way street. Okay, that's the key. It's a two-way street, all right? Two-way interaction, and it's and the only way to have it mutually beneficial, where both sides can get what they want, right? You have to be humble. You have to show generosity. You have to do all that, right? So the small country are the guests in accepting the large country's initiative. The large country invites, right? Invites the guests, right? That's the initiative, right? I invite you in. I invite you for tea, invite you for dinner, et cetera, invite you for the party, whatever, okay, et cetera. So that's the initial approach, right? That's the initial step, right? Initiative. So taking the initiative, the first step, right? And that's a humble approach. I would like, your presence to be at, my, house for the tea, for party or dinner, et cetera. All right. Okay. And then the small country would be receptive, would be saying, yes, you respond, right? RSVP, right? You respond and saying, yes, that would be great. Okay. So that's how the mutual relationship, beneficial relationship starts. All right. Okay. So at the personal level, the person of power or advantage needs to take the initiative on the humble approach to earn, remember, admiration, prestige, and respect, while the service providers, the ordinary person, will respond with admiration and be accepted as equal partners, right? So they're being receptive. So this becomes a win-win relationship for everyone, right? So that's how it works on a personal level. Okay, so further understanding is that what is at stake for the person of power or advantage and the service providers are different, right? They're different. Well, the stakes are different, right? Different objectives, right? For the person of power or advantage, it's about prestige or admiration and respect, right? Okay. While for the service provider, the ordinary person, it's about recognition, right? And survival, right? Because they need the business, right? Because they're not in a position of wealth or status or power, right? So they need to, how do you survive? How do you grow from that or get that? So that's why that's for the service provider. It's about that. Okay, that's at stake. That's what's at stake. So the person of power can afford to be proactive on the humble approach, right? Because you have, I want to say have everything, but you hold the cards. In other words, another way of saying, okay, you are in an advantageous position, right? So you can afford to be magnanimous, to be generous, to be humble. So that's why the person, now we're talking about at the personal level now, right? The person of advantage should take the initiative. Make sense? Just like a large country should take the initiative, right? Okay, so the person of power is the host, right? So the host should take the advantage, all right? So the deeper understanding is that in the Eastern model paradigm, the host has initiative. That's being active, okay? While the guest receives the initiative, that's being passive, okay? So in the host-guest interaction, the larger country, that is the host, has to take the initiative to be humble, to be generous, to be understanding, kind, etc., right? So for the small country that is the guest, it may be about survival because its existence may be at risk, right? Or maybe it's, you know, it's an existential issue for the small country, right? Okay, or for the service provider, right? That's their business, right? They have to, that's how they can, you know, survive, right? By that business, right? Okay, so it needs the protection of the large country. Or you can say, you know, if we're talking about guest host dynamic, the talking about personal level, it needs the patronage of the what? The large person, the bigger person, the person of advantage or person of wealth, status, or power. So the service provider, the ordinary person, needs the patronage. I mean, yeah, you say protection too. Okay, patronage of the person of advantage. So, whereas for the larger country, it's about adding to its power and prestige, right? For the larger country, right? If you have more small countries that want to be accepted by you and to be recognized, right? To join you, right? So for the large country, it's going to gain in prestige and power. So just like the person of advantage or wealth power, they're going to be even more, I don't say more famous, but more known, better known, right? Or better respected, admired, etc., right? So that's what it means. All right. Okay. So the higher understanding is that what is at stake between the large and small countries are different, right? That's different, right? Different, right? Okay. For the small country, it could be existential issues, right? For the large countries, it's not about that. It's more about prestige, power, fame, stuff like that, reputation. And their needs are different, right? So their needs are different. So in a mutually beneficial relationship, both sides gain what they wish. This can only happen, so you want it to have a win-win, right? Win-win for both sides, not a one-way relationship, right? Okay, win-win relationship. This can only happen when the larger country takes the initiative on the humble approach, because the large country can afford to take the initiative, right? Okay, because they're in a position to do so, right? Okay, so this also applies to life as well in human interactions, just like the person of advantage, that is the bigger person, we say, okay, the person of wealth, status, power, etc. Okay, versus the ordinary person, the service provider, etc. Okay, all right. So the implication is this. When the Tao is prevalent, that means it's being practiced or being applied in society. This relationship is strong and common among the large and small countries and the people, the people of means or advantage versus the ordinary people. And everyone benefits from this positive interaction. Now, on the flip side, when the Tao is not prevalent, not practiced, okay, or not followed, the relationship can become one-sided. And large and small countries, or the person of advantage and the ordinary person, and everyone loses in the end, right? Okay, all right. So I'm almost, time is up. Okay, so the key point is this. For both the large and small country have a common goal. They both wish to have something beneficial on both sides. That's their common goal, right? They both want to benefit. Okay. Even though what is at stake may be different. Yeah, right? Because the small country has different needs or different objective than the large country, right? And their needs may be different. The small country has more to lose and understandably can be more nervous, like the guest in the house receiving the attention or the invitation of the host. This applies to all settings in life as well, whether at work, in the family, between friends, among social circles, and the community of Tao cultivators. All right. So internally, okay, all right, it just means both the great person's thoughts are merged with and grounded in humility, and the ordinary person's thoughts are aligned and conformed with humility, where both worlds where both roads are in a mutually beneficial and harmonious relationship because they are in the lower position, like the lowest river, which is the way of the Tao, right? So whether you are in the position of a great person, your thoughts have to be grounded or based in humility. Okay, it has to be merged, okay, at one. And the ordinary person, you have to be aligned, okay, or conform or be in accordance with humility. All right. Okay. So where to be the larger country is similar to be the bigger person in a personal exchange, where the bigger person can be the first to apologize, to de-escalate, to forgive, etc. This is being a bigger person because you are not being petty, petulant, or small-minded. Because being petty, petulant, or small-minded are contrary to the Tao, whereas being forgiving, generous, magnanimous, and nurturing are in accordance to the Tao. This benefits everyone and is congruent to the Tao because it is like the river flowing across the land, nourishing and benefiting all living beings. Okay, all living beings. Now, this is not easy. Of course, it's not easy. Okay, it's not easy. Especially when you're in a position of of strength or of advantage. To apologize, de-escalate, forgive. That's not easy. I agree. That's not easy. Okay. I think in the next, let's see, what's that, chapter 63, we'll talk about a little bit about that. A little bit different. Okay. 62 really talks a little bit about that too. Okay. All right. So while in human interactions, a simple way to get the win-win is to take the initiative by repairing a contentious situation or broken relationship. Yeah, you have to take initiative, right? Whereby taking the initiative makes you the larger country. Although the interaction may have started out as among equals, but when the interaction becomes negative and there's a need to apologize, the side that takes the initiative to do so makes that side the larger country, all right? So in a personal relationship, right, if you take the initiative, to apologize, okay, then that makes you the greater person, okay, or the bigger person, right? All right. Okay. So since the larger country is to side with the power, so taking the initiative to apologize does not make you weak. It does not make you weak. You're still a big country. You're still large. You still have, all the, resources, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Okay. Quite the opposite. For being the one to initiate an apology, to forgive and forget, to withdraw from contention. This has to be done even when it is not easy. All right. Okay. Especially because it is not easy. This is where the Tao of humility can make a huge difference in your life. Okay, let's look at Appendix F. That should be the last appendix. All right. So how do we become a large country or the bigger person? Okay. So there are two areas. One is in our everyday interactions. We should be the first to smile and nod. Take the initiative, to smile and nod when you greet people, right? Even strangers, on the street, at the store, whatever. Okay. At work. All right. Take the initiative. Be the first to offer a friendly greeting. Right. Okay. Say good morning, hello, etc., right? Be the first to extend your hand in friendship, in offerings. Okay, so these are different level, different steps, you can say, right? The easiest is smile, right? Don't be angry, right? Just smile and nod. It doesn't take much effort, right? It shouldn't. It's really a reflection of your internal emotional state, you can say, or mental emotional state. All right. So, so if our minds are calm, right, are humble within, right, we are humble, right, we take the lower position, we are in accordance with the Tao, right, then this should be natural. It should be just a natural reflection of our Buddha nature, okay, of our, okay, all right, that's it, okay, and then the rest will follow, okay, all right, okay. Then in reference to contention in the area, okay, when you find in yourself in a situation where there's contention, be it a you say bad relationship or whatever, right? Okay, be the first to withdraw from hostilities. That's not easy. Okay, that's you can say that's the big step. Yeah, I mean it's okay, it's uh, be the first to step down, to calm down. It means to calm down too, right? To step back. Be the first to step back. That's not easy, especially if we were taught in a society or brought up in a society where they say you have to stand your ground. You have to stand for what you believe in. What your convictions are. That's only one side. Okay, that's one side. Okay, because if you just follow that rule, that principle, then you'll find yourself always in this, okay, in contention, right? So it's not easy, okay? It takes, so that's why do you think sages, all the Buddhas, Jesus, etc., Confucius, Mencius, Zhuangzi, etc., they do not like to argue. They do not, so because they don't want to be involved in contention or hostility, right? They don't like debates. Okay, so that's why. All right, so okay, all right, so that's like sort of like the prevention part. Okay, you don't want to escalate. You don't want a bad situation to get even worse, right? So you have to de-escalate, right? That's called de-escalation, right? This is like hostage negotiation. People, they have to do that. They learn about that. Okay, especially, well, it's a lot of psychology. Okay, unfortunately, but that's anyway. Okay, then okay, so if you're the first, you take the initiative to de-escalate, to step back, say, "Ooh, okay, I don't want to add fuel to the fire," right? So okay, so you step down. Then the next one is even better, is to apologize. Whoa, I mean, this is difficult because people say, "Hey, I'm in the right, right? I'm in the right." So, and also, you started it, right? Not me or whatever. Okay, so stuff like that. So that's not easy, even though you're not the one that started it, or even though you may be right. Okay, the right. By de-escalating, the very first thing to do, I mean, by de-escalating, and then the next step by offering an apology, that is a sign not of weakness but of strength. Yeah, people believe in that. Say, "Oh, you're showing weakness." Yeah, yeah. You're showing weakness. That you have to apologize when you're right, or or you didn't start it. You have to apologize. I mean, come on, you're weak. See, that's the problem where we get into that mindset of you have to stand your ground. You have to show then that you're right. That so that you can't be bullied. Stuff like that. So that's that's once again, it's an ego. It's an ego thing. Even though you say, oh, it's based on principle, right? So that's that. I'm telling you, if we do that, you're gonna get endless this. Okay, absolutely, for sure, guaranteed. Okay, guaranteed. All right. So we have to figure out how to do that, de-escalate. And you have to do this. You have to apologize. That's really from a position of strength, because inside, you may be right. You are right. But you are willing to apologize in order not to make this bad situation even worse. Okay. That's the greater person. That's being a bigger person. That's being what they call a saint. Or that's wise. That's wisdom. That's what a saint would do. That's being a sage and a sage. Okay. So this is sage-like, or bodhisattva-like, or Buddha-like, etc., etc. Okay. Okay. Then the next step is, whoa, this is probably even tougher. Okay. Be the first to forgive and forget. Oh, that's tough. Right? What did Jesus say? Even to your enemies, right? What did he say? Turn your cheek, or something like that, right? Turn the other cheek, right? Turn the other cheek. Love thy enemy, right? Love thy enemy. Wow, that's tough. That's that's the level of a Buddha, of a sage or a saint. Okay, that's right. To forgive is divine, right? To err is human, to forgive is divine. That's Alexander Pope, okay, all right? An English poet and author. Okay, all right. To err is human, to forgive divine. Yeah, that's really what the Tao is. That's the Tao. That's the Tao right there. So if you want to say, oh, how do I emulate the Tao? Well, if you could do this, then you are it. Okay, it's not easy. Now we say, how's that the Tao? How's the Tao? The Tao does forgive. It doesn't remember. It doesn't hold grudges against you. Now you can say, what it does is you may have bad outcomes later on, but that's causality. That's called causality. Okay, that's causality. All right. Okay, that has nothing to do with the Tao. The Tao naturally doesn't hold grudges, right? Right? Like I say, it shines on everybody, right? So it doesn't, so that's why it doesn't need to forgive and forget, because it holds no grudges against anybody, right? The just or the unjust, etc., the deserving versus the non-deserving, etc., right? Okay, so this is not easy. I'm telling you, this is not easy. Okay, yeah. So, this is, like Jesus said, right? To turn the other cheek, right? To forgive is divine. To love your enemies. That's not easy. All right. So, but that's something that we should, aim for. Okay. So that's why relinquishment is a big part of towards this. That is to lower your ego. That's why the whole point of this chapter, to be in the lowest position, like the lowest reaches of a river, right? To be lower, right? That's the whole point. To lower our egos. To relinquish. I mean, ultimately that's relinquishment in Buddhism, okay, in Buddhist teachings. So if you could do that, then these things, these 3 steps would be it's a lot easier, because it's no longer about me, okay, about, I, okay, all right. So now, note well, if you are not sure who is the large country in a situation, be in an interaction or in contention. All right. Let's say I'm not sure. Oh, am I the bigger country? Am I the, I'm a nobody. And how can I be, in a position? You actually do. The very fact that there is uncertainty is the sure sign that you need to take the initiative. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay. So that means you have some questions. All right. So that the very fact that you have that means that you should take the initiative. All right. It's not easy. I agree. It's not easy, because if it's easy, we wouldn't be in this world, right? At least the situation in the world, right? Okay, so, all right, so that's the big teaching point right there. Okay, one of the big teaching points. Okay, so anyway, all right, so, all right, where are we? Okay, so here's in the conclusion. I think I'm almost done. Sorry. Okay, so this means to be the bigger person or the larger country. So one must first take the humble approach, which links back to the first phrase about ruling a large country, that is the bigger person, is to like being the lowest river or taking the humble approach. Only then can there be admiration and respect. So in order to be great, one must be humble. This is like being the lowest river or dwelling at the lowest reaches of a river. This is to dwell below. This is to be low or to be lower position. Okay, I think I took we did talk about this. Yes, we did. Okay, so I think this concludes this class. I think took about 70 minutes. We'll start a little bit late, but it's about right, 65 students. Okay, so so if I said anything wrong or not correct or incorrect, I ask for the Buddha's and Lao Tzu's guidance and everybody's guidance. Okay, thank you. This concludes today's class.